G'day, how you doing? It is the weekend whistle on OJ in the morning. Of course, on the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Also find it on YouTube as well. And we welcome to the show a regular contributor. We hope he's going to be too. That is one John McBeth, sporting legend of South Canterbury. How you doing?
Mate, thank you, OJ. Nice to chat again. I was absolutely gobsmacked. For those people who don't know, there was the 60th South Canterbury Sports Awards on at the Bay Hall a couple of weeks ago, and I had been invited down to be a guest speaker, which I reluctantly agreed to because, I've spoken in South Canterbury several times, and I thought, it must be someone else that they could get who would be more riveting as a speaker. Anyway, I did the whole thing. Lots of, on reflection, lots of warnings were there or signs were there that something special was happening, but I just had no idea. So I'm up on the stage and Stu Piddington says, John, you're now a legend. And there's a photo of me with my mouth wide open, for a change not able to speak. And I joined such illustrious people as, Jack Lovelock and Dick Taylor and the 74 rugby team and, all sorts of Colin Hawke as a legend of South Canterbury sport, for which I was totally overwhelmed, mate. It took me a few days to sort of get to grips with it. But a lot of secrecy and a lot of deceit and a lot of lies told, I think, to get me there and make me unaware of what was going on.
So well deserved. I mean, would you have ever thought, back in the old days of being on Radio Caroline, and what was it back in those days? 3ZC,
3ZC,
back in the day. That one day I'm going to be a sporting legend in South Canterbury.
Well, particularly when the people who've been awarded the South Canterbury Sports Person of the Year award since its inception back in early in 1960, I was at 66. I knew and watched a lot of those people playing sport and was in awe of their ability, and then to be thrust in that same sort of category through no sporting ability, just an ability not to leave dead air.
Nah, it's all about telling a good yarn, and you've certainly told plenty of good sporting yarns over the years, and a few more to come too, I might add. John, let's get things underway on OJ in the morning with a bit of football and Auckland FC riding a wave at the moment.
Absolutely brilliant from them. I thought their build-up last year was the publicity they got was over the top. I thought it was just another, Auckland effort where all the main media are based in Auckland, and because it was Auckland, they gave Auckland FC a lot of publicity, more than, for example, the Phoenix had ever had in their entire lifespan. So it didn't worry me that they got knocked out in the semi-finals last year. But what I think has happened is that, as Bev Priestman said, the coach of the Wellington Phoenix women, said last weekend they got beaten in the final. She said, bottle that up. It hurt. Make sure you don't forget what it felt like. And I'm sure that that's what Steve Corica has said to his players from last year. Remember what it was like last season. Now they've got up and they've beaten Adelaide, 3-0, in the semi-final, earned that home final against Sydney. The place, Go Media Stadium, is packed out. They've already sold out 25,000 or so. So it's really a big moment, and it could well be that Auckland FC, just in their second season of existence, get up and become the first Kiwi team to win a grand final in the A-League. So, something to look forward to. I'm not a big follower of football, but I watched the Phoenix final last week, and I'll be watching this one with Auckland FC this weekend.
I know you're not a big follower of the rugby league either, but maybe the worm is turning.
I've watched more rugby league this year than I dare admit, really. And like a lot of New Zealanders, there's a real switch towards the Warriors. We've tried it over the years, OJ. You and I used to talk about it, is this their year? And they flatter to deceive, basically. But this year, they've just carried on, and there's still a long way in this season to go. But what they're doing is they're beating good teams well. They're defending when it really matters. That's really good. It looks as though they've got that team strength there, isn't there? There's that bond between them all. They're playing for each other. I like that. And even though a key injury last weekend, Tanner Boyd, but the replacements will step in. There doesn't appear to be any panic or anything. They know, and they played most of that game last weekend without him. They know they're capable of stepping up and matching it with the best in the league. So, yep, I'm touching the wooden desk at the moment. I'm touching my head, and I'm thinking, maybe we might be rewarded this year.
I certainly hope so. All right, on the weekend whistle, got 5 sporting events coming up this weekend, John, and I want you to predict how they might turn out. So first up, you've already mentioned it, Auckland FC against Sydney. What's the result going to be?
Oh, I can't go past Auckland FC. They're on a high. They're at home. It's got to be, whether it's 1-0 or on penalties, and they're capable of that. Yep, we'll go for Auckland FC.
All right, Warriors are up against the Dragons this weekend, and how do you think the Warriors might go?
Again, the role is there. It'll be, Dragons are a tough team, but this Warriors team is just stepping up to the mark. So let's go for the Warriors.
All right, getting down to the final sort of few rounds of Super Rugby, Crusaders playing the Chiefs.
At home for the Crusaders too, isn't it? And the Chiefs have, the Crusaders have undone the Chiefs enough times over recent years. They appear to be on a high. The Chiefs are second behind the Hurricanes. But no, I think home advantage, playing in this new stadium, Crusaders are just starting to lift. Yeah, I'll go for the Crusaders. It'll be narrow, but let's go for your team.
All right, the Highlanders versus your team, the Hurricanes.
Yeah. I was chatting to my old mate Keith Quinn today, and he said, do you know what? I think we're seeing one of the best Super Rugby teams in many years. And I said, best Hurricanes teams? And he said, no, I think we're seeing one of the best Super Rugby teams in many years. And he was talking about the Hurricanes. And you can't argue with it at the moment. So, yep, the Hurricanes, for me, over the Highlanders.
And finally, the Tactics, who are having an unbelievable season up against the Stars this weekend.
What's Donna Loughagen got? I'm pretty she hasn't taken to the court, although I think there was a suggestion she might. No, I think the Tactics are just, this remarkable role that they're on as well. So Tactics over the Stars, that'll do me.
John, fantastic to have you on the Weekend Whistle on OJ in the morning. Enjoy your weekend sport, and we'll catch you back next week.
Okay, cheers, mate.